Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, we are finally covering Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 5. Like I said in the last video that we did on Ultimate Spider-Man, I wasn't gonna cover any more of these issues, but you guys asked me to cover this one. You guys asked me to keep going, so here we are. I'm gonna continue the series. So this issue is great because it answers a ton of questions that we had, and a lot of questions and predictions that I introduced in this other video, where I kind of talked about the direction of the Ultimate Universe and what we could expect. If you didn't see that video, go ahead and check it out here and come back. And I gotta say, the best thing about this issue is the scale of time, right? This issue covers a gigantic amount of time and answers a lot of questions about the in-betweens of things that we've seen throughout the series so far. So basically where we start is we see a man looking out a window saying, "Let me guess, he's running late," looking out at all the skyscrapers in the city. A blonde woman approaches him. "I'm sure he'll be here soon, and I'm sure he'll have a good reason." The man says, "No, you're either where you're supposed to be or you're not. Anything else is just an excuse. You shouldn't offer them to him, and he shouldn't for himself." The woman says, "Oh, and I suppose the great Norman Osborn has never been late to anything in his life." And Norman says, "I was, just once. And never again." So I think we can reasonably assume this is Harry's parents. His mother gets a phone call from him, and Norman answers the phone for her. Harry's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm sorry, I thought I called Mom. Where are you?" We see Harry in the city streets a couple blocks away. He's like, "Harry, I know, I'll be there in like 5 minutes. Norman says, "Son, you know who we're supposed to be meeting with, and I've stressed how important today is. This is unacceptable." And Harry goes, "Look, I'm sorry, Dad. I tell you why I'm late, but it wouldn't matter if I did, would it?" And Norman's like, "What name do you bear?" Harry says, What name do you bear?" And Harry says, "Osborn." And Norman says, "Yes, it's a great name. It means something. Harry, do you know what my favorite memory of you is?" And Harry waits for a second and says, "Yeah, that time we played catch." And no, that's you, the little boy, talking. And that memory, it's the memory of a child. "My favorite memory of you is the day you finally started acting like a man, like an Osborn. Problem is, it hasn't happened yet. We're all waiting for you, Harry. How long are you gonna make us wait? How much longer am I going to..." Just then, the entire building that Norman is in explodes, and Harry witnesses the death of both of his parents right in front of him. We then jump forward a couple weeks later, where they're kind of handling the affairs of not only personal assets, but the company, and seeing ownership basically passed down. Harry's attorney explains that Norman had almost the entirety of his estate and personal assets in a trust that Harry and Gwen could kind of share control over, and now it's fully passed down to them. So the company itself should also be passed down pretty easily without much trouble or anything like that. Harry and Gwen then touch each other's hands and say, "That's good. Is there anything else you need to go over with us? Because we..." And then the attorney cuts him off. "There is one other thing." And he holds up a card with a little chess piece in a circle around it. "Harry, this was delivered to my office this morning for you." Harry looks at the card and says, "What is it?" And the attorney wears a serious expression. "I have no idea what it means, but I do know who it's from." "Well, I'm here," Harry says. We then see the Kingpin himself, Wilson Fisk, sitting in a pool, sipping champagne, and right on time. "Do you know who I am?" Harry says, "You are Wilson Fisk, entrepreneur, business magnate, man of influence, and on and on. Everyone knows this. Can you tell me what they don't?" Harry hesitates for a second before looking back at Bullseye. "With the fall of Stain Stark and the Union now a divided protectorate of other regions, there are rumors that you've secretly been named both the Shadow Governor of the Greater New York Territory, as well as the Kingpin of Manhattan." Fisk then holds up his glass and smiles, almost as a way to say, "Exactly right." He gets out of the pool. "I'm not a vain man, but from time to time it is nice to hear one's name ring out. Yes, I've been named, and next week I will be officially elevated to both positions. I'll be running things now. You should be very pleased about that." Harry scratches his head. "And why is that?" Fisk starts putting on his robe. "Because I need a favor. One I think you are uniquely suited to provide." Harry then gestures towards himself with one hand. "I'm not my father, Mr. Fisk, and even though I'm probably gonna spend the next few years of my life pretending to be, he'd be the first to tell you I don't have his influence or pedigree." "Well," Fisk says, "you'll just have to make do." And he leans in real close and says, "You see, I have 2 5-letter shadows hanging over my head. See, Obadiah Stane had no existing family, and now there are no more Starks. There's no arguing about the value of the company, but I need to eliminate the remnants, keep it from rising again, because it won't be forgotten, and I'm not qualified to separate the Stark wheat from the Stark chaff. Harry tilts his head and looks at him funny. I don't see what I can do about any of that, and with all due respect, it's your problem, not mine. Well, not if I sell it to you. We then jump forward 2 weeks and see Harry, Gwen, and a man with a blowtorch breaking into a secret vault within Stain's Stark Tower. They stumble upon a collection of Iron Man suits. They then access a company laptop that's been in storage, and then stumble upon a bunch of secret folders pertaining to the Maker, the Council, a bunch of 10 and 20 and 50-year plans. Gwen leans over the table and says, Otto, and the man says, it's Dr. Octavius. And she says, Otto. He hesitates for a moment and says, yes. She's like, you need to sign an NDA. Harry's like, he's already on an NDA. She says, no, he's gonna need a new one with more teeth. And Otto's like, because if I don't, I can't play with all the new toys. And he grins and says, where do I sign? So this is Otto Octavius working with Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy. This is their team at Oscorp, dealing with all these files, dealing with these secrets. So Doc Ock has been behind the scenes the whole time in all these issues, and we just didn't know that he was involved at all. We jump ahead even further to see the very first design of the Oscorp suit that Otto actually designed himself, and it makes more sense now why it looks more robotic, looks more like the Sam Raimi movies. It's more Iron Man armor because it was literally made for that and was repainted. Otto then hands him a helmet and says, this is the reason I called you down to the lab. And Harry's like, yeah, you seemed a little unsettled. And Otto says, I'm confused. Just put the helmet on, I'll show you. And then we see the most Iron Man looking interface. He ends up seeing a little hologram of a map with red dots spread across it and says, whoa, what am I looking at? And Otto says, all this stuff runs on a secure network that links all the technology together. Each one of those dots is another piece of Stark tech, you know, like the suits or like an arc node that are connected to the rest on this network. So what you're looking at is a snapshot of what the network looked like 2 days ago. And then he changes to a different one with a lot more dots and says, and this is what it looks like right now. Harry then takes the helmet off and says, Otto, what the... He gets cut off, and Otto says, the first new signal appeared last night, and they kept appearing every couple minutes until they finally stopped around 6 a.m. And Harry says, how many? Over 100. What I can't tell is if they are old or dormant tech waking up, or if this is something entirely new. And Harry looks at the mask and says, well, I guess we better find out. We then jump ahead another month to the whole Spider-Man versus Shocker encounter, and we see that Harry actually followed the Shocker, saying, I think you have something that doesn't belong to you. Shocker tries to electrocute him and says, I'm keeping the money, pal, and there ain't a thing you can do to stop me, before the gloves suddenly shut down and says, huh? What happened? Goblin says, I turned them off because I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the gloves. Where'd you get them? Shocker says, I tell you where, and I get to keep the money? Goblin says, sure. Shocker then explains, I was robbing this guy's apartment, and turns out he must have died or something, had a heart attack in his favorite chair, and there was this light and that terrorist kid Stark talking, and then the light stopped and these gloves were just sitting there, so I took them and put them on. Goblin then says, so Stark's alive? That would mean... Shocker then tries to surprise attack Green Goblin and doesn't even phase him. Was that supposed to hurt? He then knocks Shocker out and leaves. We then jump ahead another month, and this would have been right after Green Goblin and Spider-Man met for the very first time and took down Bullseye, and afterwards apparently they went to a bar, and Harry says, so what do you do, Peter? Peter's like, huh? He's like, for a living, what do you do? Peter says, oh, I'm a photojournalist. I mostly take pictures for the Daily Bugle. Harry then suggests dinner, and Peter's like, let's just see how the drinks go first. Harry says, tell me something. Did Tony Stark appear to you out of thin air and give you your suit? Peter hesitates and says, there is more to it than that, but yeah. Did the same thing happen to you? And Harry's like, no, I found all this out the hard way. Harry then explains everything that he's gone through up to this point and says, after that, when I was reading through all the Stark family secrets, I found out that the people who gave me this company might just be the most evil people in the history of the world, and that it was very possible that they, not Stark, are who really had my parents' blood on their hands. Do you know why Stark picked you? And Peter says, I was supposed to have a different life, which was stolen from me by the same people you're talking about, I'm guessing. And now you're gonna do something about it? He said I was supposed to be a hero, and as soon as he said it, I knew it in my bones. So yeah, of course, we're gonna do something about it. And that's why they ended up going to the dinner. And then we jump to now, where Harry's talking to someone and says, at first I thought it was just your suit that gave you your powers. Honestly, I thought you were the suit because it took almost a month to peel you out of it. So imagine my surprise when I found out the problem went a little deeper. You have some sort of imbalance embedded exoskeleton under your skin. And while it is impressive, taking it off, that had to hurt. We then see Bullseye strapped to a chair in a dark room, saying, "Pain is part of the process." Harry's like, "In the eye? What's that about?" Bullseye says, "When my master lost his, my brothers and sisters tore ours out in solidarity. Do you have any idea what kind of devotion it takes to do such a thing? That's who you're dealing with." Harry says, "Oh, I believe you're committed. All your masters are. The world is evidence of that. But you need to understand, I am committed too. You're gonna give me answers because I need them. You're gonna tell me everything, and I don't care how long it takes to get what I want." Bullseye grins and says, "Everyone thinks they want to be a hero until it actually costs something, and it always does. We make sure of that. Then we get to see what you really are." Harry picks up the mask and says, "My father always talked about the difference between being a boy and a man, and maybe he was right. But maybe you are too. Am I a boy or a man? Am I a hero or something else?" We then get a little title card right before the end indicating that it's now May. Before Harry finishes, "I guess we're about to find out." And that is where it ends. So that is like literally everything relating to Harry, and what we covered in that Ultimate Universe video was kind of explored here. And it, you know, that was the question, is how did he find out about all this stuff? How was he involved, and what is his plan? And now we know. And it looks like he's going to be leaning still a little bit more towards the villain side, but ultimately, no pun intended, he's still going after the big bad guys, and he's bringing Peter along with him. So that's really, really exciting. It's really cool to see like the confirmation of all this stuff as it's boiling up and getting us closer and closer to what we want to see. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. That is the video. Thank you for watching.